Welcome back to Speaking with Confidence, a podcast that helps you build the soft skills that lead to real results. Communication, storytelling, public speaking, and showing up with confidence in every conversation that counts. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on a journey to becoming a powerful communicator. How many of you have a difficult coworker you have to deal with on a regular basis? If you cannot identify a difficult coworker, that person may just be you. It's kind of like the slow player in a golf foursome. The slow player never thinks they're playing slow, and the difficult coworker doesn't realize they are the difficult one. Have you ever finished a conversation and realized you spent the whole time talking about yourself? That's your inner me monster quietly wrecking your workplace relationships. And in this episode, I'll show you how to flip that script. We'll combine John Maxwell's law of connection with Ryan Leake's collaboration mindset so you can run one intentional conversation that actually changes how coworkers respond. You'll also see this play out through a mix of real-world role plays and quick teaching moments that make the shift easy to follow. So let's start by meeting one me monster up close. The me monster epidemic shows up in workplaces more often than we'd like to admit. Picture this: a marketing team scrambling with a crashing server and urgent deadlines, but one teammate, let's call her Sarah, is rambling on about the hot tub at her Airbnb. While everyone else is trying to solve the crisis, she's lost in her own story. And that's the essence of a me monster, turning every conversation into me, even when the timing couldn't be worse. The impact of this behavior isn't just irritation. While Sarah goes on about her weekend, critical issues are ignored and details slip further out of reach. Teams like hers pay a real-time cost. Employees spend an average of 3.2 hours every week just untangling poorly communicated information, time that could have been spent on actual work. And on top of that, research shows that 63% of workers believe at least half of their coworkers are poor communicators. When one person regularly dominates conversations, they amplify those frustrations and spread more breakdowns across the team. Science helps explain why this happens. Researchers point out that self-related material is especially salient to our brains, which is why under stress or excitement, we so easily default to personal stories. Sarah isn't intentionally sabotaging her team. Like many of us, she's just running on autopilot, unaware of how often she redirects the spotlight back to herself. But the fallout is real. Collaboration erodes, morale dips, and colleagues start to disengage. Over time, people stop volunteering ideas because they assume no one's truly listening. The first step to changing this dynamic is being able to see it in ourselves. So here are 3 quick signs you might be slipping into me monster territory. Number 1, you keep steering conversations back to your own experiences. Number 2, you miss body language that signals, let me jump in. And 3, you realize you don't know much about your coworkers beyond surface level details. Sarah checks all 3, and it's holding her back. The promising part? You don't have to stay stuck there. There's a clear framework that helps retrain those habits, and it begins with shifting how you enter a conversation. What if you had a straightforward rhythm you could follow to make anyone feel genuinely heard? That's exactly what John Maxwell's connection blueprint offers. It's a 5-step system that turns everyday conversations into real points of trust and understanding. Let's take Sarah again. She starts with step 1. Set aside your agenda. At first she goes through the motions. She asks a teammate, how was your weekend? But her body language gives her away. Tapping fingers and darting eyes make it obvious she isn't really listening. The conversation stalls before it even begins. But when she applies the blueprint, she changes the approach. She notices a coworker sigh in frustration and instead asks, what part's giving you the most trouble? That simple, curious follow-up unlocks something. Instead of the generic small talk, her teammate's share was actually wrong and gives Sarah a chance to understand and respond. Research on connection and trust emphasizes that genuine follow-up questions send an implicit message, that your input actually matters. That message is what builds psychological safety in real time. The second step is to keep asking curious questions that dig just beneath the surface. You're not interrogating, you're showing that you care enough to learn what's actually going on. Step 3 is to lean into the moment. When Sarah sees two coworkers rubbing their eyes during a tense meeting, she suggests a coffee run. It isn't a grand gesture, but it diffuses the tension and signals, I see you. Shared micro moments like this are what strengthen bonds across the team. Step 4 is about making small experiences memorable. Sarah starts recalling details later, asking about a colleague's child's recital days afterward. That small recall shows respect and cements that connection far more than any small talk could. And step 5 is to keep the connection alive. A quick follow-up or a short email or even remembering someone's name when it matters demonstrates consistency. These 5 steps: quiet your agenda, ask deeper questions, lean in, create moments, and follow up form a repeatable rhythm backed by leadership research emphasizing trust, respect, and genuine care. Here's a practice you can try today. In your next meeting, give yourself a small rule. Ask one curious question for every 2 comments you make. That tiny adjustment keeps you focused on connection instead of performance. And while this blueprint transforms regular interactions, it raises the harder question. What happens when the person across from you is resistant or even difficult? That's where the next piece comes in. Collaboration requires an intentional decision. It doesn't just unfold on its own. Sarah faces her toughest challenge yet when she's paired with Mark. The office skeptic shoots down nearly every idea. Her instinct is to push back, sharpening defensive comebacks, but she catches herself. Instead of escalating, she remembers Ryan Leake's principle: begin by assuming positive intent. She tries a different route and asks, what would make this project worth your time? That one question surfaces Mark's real concern. He's overloaded with impossible timelines, not uninterested in contributing. Once Sarah shifts her mindset from defending her ideas to exploring his perspective, the conversation changes. Together, they redesign the timeline around his workload while leaving space for her creative suggestions. And what originally looked like resistance turns out to be insight into recurring problems that need solving. The collaboration mindset reframes conflict not as a wall, but as an opening. And assuming positive intent lowers defensiveness and invites problem solving. Now still, it's important to note that this isn't a license to ignore harmful behavior. It works best as a practical default. Begin with generosity, then take outcomes and boundaries seriously. As Sarah and Mark continue, they practice small but critical habits: surfacing assumptions, inviting challenges, and clarifying interests without locking into rigid positions. Research across leadership and organizational studies consistently shows teams that operate this way turn friction into creative solutions more often. This is the environment Google's Project Aristotle highlighted, where psychological safety, trust, and open communication drive performance far more than individual star talent alone. Sarah now models this by saying things like, I'm assuming we need client approval first. Am I off? Instead of dropping declarations, she leaves space for Mark to refine or redirect, which builds trust. The change shows most clearly when they debate a vendor. Sarah suggests they first list must-haves instead of pushing her favorite. Mark prioritizes technical support. She values creative flexibility. And side by side, they identify a vendor neither had considered, but one that satisfies both priorities. And that's a result neither would have reached alone. To start building this mindset yourself, try the assume and ask script. Say, I'm assuming X. Am I missing something? What would make this worth your time? That simple phrasing keeps dialogue open and constructive, even when the stakes run high. And the truth is, one intentional shift like this can start changing everything about how your workday feels. Start with one intentional conversation today. Tomorrow, in your next meeting, try this micro experiment. For every 2 times you want to share your own story, pause and ask one follow-up question instead. Notice how that shifts the tone of the exchange. You control your side of the interaction. Curiosity and small habit changes influence how others respond over time and build credibility, even if colleagues don't change immediately. Remember, assume positive intent as a baseline, but also watch the impact and set boundaries if patterns become harmful. Remember, we're looking for progress, not perfection. That's all for today. Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Forming for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change it. We'll talk to you next time.